Good morning.
Good morning.
Today is all about power. So you'll see in your program a purple sheet. How many of you are wearing purple? How many wore green today? I'm just curious. Yeah. Don't feel bad. It's okay. So purple's okay. It's okay to go out of order on the rainbow, don't you think? So we are...
Mr. Ray, your agent trying to get a hold of you.
Oh, you want me on? Turn me on. I have to flip a switch. Are we good now? We're good. And so purple is about power. And so we had to go out of order because it is the highest level of vibration of the whole series. And it needed to fit here because the chapters that we're using are all about claiming our power. So I want to just have us look at the affirmation for today. It's on the back of that sheet at the bottom. It says, I am living my purpose powerfully no matter what. Together, I am living my purpose powerfully no matter what. So the no matter what is the kicker. And so I want to tie a little bit into what this week is all about. Also, this past Wednesday was Ash Wednesday. So Ash Wednesday, we don't really use ashes that much in Unity Church, but they're very symbolic. And so I used to be a Catholic, and I remember Wednesdays, Ash Wednesday, we would put the ashes on, and you'd leave them on all day. I didn't know why. You just told you needed to do it. So I decided I was going to look up, why did we have to do that? So Mother, do you remember why we had to do that? And so, what the Catholic Church teaches is that we wear it because we announce to the world that we are sinners, and so we need to release our sins to the Lord. So that's the first part. The second part I never remember hearing, and that was it's about recommitting spiritual goals that you'll practice up until Easter. I don't know what happens after Easter, but you practice it up to Easter. And I said, well, that's pretty cool. I didn't remember that, but it was pretty cool. And then I did a search on Unity to see, what do Unity churches typically believe? And I thought that was really cool. It's a time for us to release limiting beliefs that no longer serve us. And so you could actually do a ceremony when you get home. You're going to barbecue for the Daytona 500 today? Barbecue. If you do, you can take those divorce papers that you've been hanging on to and burn them. I mean, there could even be, you may have kept some things about, loved ones that have passed that no longer do you need to keep, but you can symbolically, release not the memory of them, but any attachment of pain that you might have about that. And then the other part of it for unity is to reconfirm what Jesus promised us. And so his promise was that if you have the Christ presence flowing through you in a pure way, you can have perfect health. You can have prosperity. You can have harmonious relationships. You can have a sense of peace of mind. Well, I think that's pretty cool. And so there was that. And then I had the opportunity to spend time in India with Sri Satya Sai Baba. And I don't know if you know anything, but he used to manifest ash out of pure air. And he called it his calling card. And what it was more than anything, and what the Eastern philosophy believes about ash. So ash is, first of all, a renunciation, a release of attachments to desire. And then the second part of that is to acknowledge the glory of God as the Atmic presence within us. I think that's pretty cool. So as we go throughout today, there's going to be several levels of what we're going to talk about today. And I'm going to use the metaphor of the bicycle trip, which be riding the vibe and the bicycle. And so I just want to share about, anyone from Kansas? Kansas was hell on a bike. This is Kansas. Now, what you don't get to see, there's no hill, so it's really easy to bicycle through Kansas, right? How's the wind? Yeah, it's horizontal. And it's against you no matter what way you're going. So throughout Kansas, and I'm going to show you a map later on, Kansas is a long state. Throughout Kansas, there was a consistent 15 15-mile-an-hour headwind with gusts of 25 miles an hour crosswinds that nearly knocked me off my bike. Kansas was hell on a bike. And so it was interesting because when I first got into Kansas, I said, okay, I heard about these winds and I'm going to get ready. And so I had my little, at that time it was a little CD player, and I put in my Rocky song. You know, gonna fly now from the first theme for Rocky, so I'm gonna battle this wind today. And so I had my headphones on and I'm pedaling and getting pummeled by the wind, and it was mentally fatiguing, physically fatiguing, emotionally draining. By the end of the day I was spent. I was cursing. And so I looked at that and I said, are you really gonna feel this pain going all the way across Kansas? That's what you're choosing? And I said, you know, okay, I've studied Unity. I've studied principles. So what if I look at what the value of the wind is? And so I thought about the wind. And so the wind, first of all, if it wasn't blowing, it would be a lot hotter, right? Also, if we didn't have the wind, it wouldn't be having currents go above the ocean and bringing the water up so we could have replenishing rain that cools us off, cools the earth, has us grow crops. And I said, well, wind is good, so why don't I shift my thinking about this thing called the wind? And so I did. I meditated that night, and then the first thing in the next morning, got up and meditated, and then I decided, okay, we're going to choose some different music, and I chose some Native American flute music. And so I put that on, and I decided, you know, I'm just going to notice the beauty of everything around me today, and I'm going to let the wind do whatever the wind's going to do, and so what? And that's what I did. And I said, you know, as long as it takes, so I was riding 70 to 80 miles a day in Kansas, and I said, you know, as long as it takes, it takes. And so let's just enjoy it. It was like night and day. It was absolutely amazing, the different feeling I had at the end of that second day. And the only thing I shifted was my thinking about that day, my thinking about the wind. And I likened it to what athletes talk about. And so they talk about hitting the wall. Any of you ever done a marathon or anything like that? And so marathon's 26 miles. When do you hit the wall? About first mile. Should have trained, no. Somewhere about 15 to 20 miles you hit the wall. And hitting the wall is like you don't feel like going another step. You don't feel like pedaling another stroke. You don't even know if you can do it. But you do it anyway. And then there's amazing things that happen when you get on the other side of that wall. There's what the athletes call getting in the zone. You just kind of zone out the pain, the burning in your muscles, whatever other pains and aches you have, and you just do what you need to do. And you get it done. That's what happened in Kansas. In Kansas, when I got through that state, it was that state there that I reached past the halfway point of the journey from Phoenix to Ground Zero, New York City. And so there was a celebration, too, that happened there. There was a recommitting that happened. So I want to share with you on your purple sheet, we're going to look at some of those questions. Because the purple sheet, if you're not using it, is an incredibly powerful piece that can bring you to a new awakening for the next week. And so the first question is actually called question 15. We've been doing these in sequence. This is our 15th question to this point. It's got two parts. The first part says, what is the situation in your life that is hell for you right now? And so stuff happens. Pains and aches. So I broke my tooth like a week and a half ago. It's still broken. I scheduled an appointment. I'm going down to Mexico to my favorite dentist and getting it repaired there. So that's going to happen this upcoming week. We'll have fun while we're done there too, however you do that in the midst of getting the work done on your tooth. We also we have an RV. We're full-time RVers, and there's something called an inverter. So the inverter is a device that's the heart of the rig. And so it's what takes electricity when you're plugged in to a power source. It charges your batteries. Well, that's not working, so we don't get powered through us right now. And so this thing decided it was done. It made its transition. We're going to release it. And we actually had some fun. First service, my RV mechanic has been coming to this commitment program. And so he's sitting there, and I was like, how cool is that? And so he is the Christ presence in RV mechanic. And so we're going to get it done, get it repaired, and we'll be good and plugged in, ready to roll again. So stuff happens. Stuff's happening in your life right now. I know it. And so what is it right now that's feeling like hell to you? And then the second part of the question, this is the kicker. It's the shift. It's the shift in energy. How can you respond differently to enjoy more positive results? Go ahead and show the next slide. So I actually found peace in Kansas. It's Peace Road and 95th Avenue. But where the peace came from was the shifting of my thinking. And I actually reached a point in that shift that I said, I don't care what the weather is from here on. It doesn't matter. I'll deal with it when it comes up, in whatever way it comes up. And it came up in rain, and it came up in hail, and it came up in all sorts of stuff. The only thing I missed was a tornado. That could have happened in Kansas. And so, aches and pains happen. Next slide. There's a natural law in Unity. We call it the law of mind action. That our thoughts create our circumstances. It's a subset of the law of attraction. And so my shift in thinking created whole different circumstances of just enjoying whatever's going to happen from that point on, and it became a very joyful trip. I released all expectations of what was going to unfold, other than I knew I was going to get. I knew I was going to get to ground zero somehow. And then something else happened. Next slide. So we had a situation happen in Kansas, and the situation was I had a butt problem in Kansas. You ride 5 to 6 hours in the saddle, and you too would have butt problems in Kansas. And so fortunately, God has created Preparation H. And also the farmers have created something called Utterly Smooth. It's for cows' udders. And so I was able to, with a little external help, release some of the suffering, but there was something huge that occurred. It was a refocusing on the strength of God's presence within me. And so this right here, with God, all things are possible. This was actually our affirmation that kept us in the Christ presence when we thought of it. This is actually the license plate from the vehicle, a Toyota 4Runner, that Lynn drove as a support vehicle across the country. And you can even see all the bugs. They're still on there from Kansas, Missouri, Kentucky. And with God, all things are possible. And so no matter what comes up, if we could really have that strength to know that we can get through any health challenge, through our faith. Faith is the assurance of things hoped for, the conviction of things unseen. The assurance of things hoped for, the conviction of things unseen. And so I couldn't see exactly how I was going to get through this challenge, because it got pretty severe. And divine order would have it that, go ahead and put the next slide up. I think it's the one I got. So as divine order would have it, we had scheduled fire station chats across the country where we shared a message of hope and healing. And so this was Kansas right here. And these red dots you see, these are fire stations that we were scheduled to speak in. Kansas canceled them. And so I said, oh, perfect. And so what I did is I started meditating and